High Chancellor Vexrath of the Galactic Council stood before the empty chamber, staring at the vacant seats where humanity's delegation once sat. 3 cycles had passed since the humans sealed their borders and departed without fanfare, without threats, without war, just silence. And in that silence, the galaxy was finally forced to listen. "Begin the testimony," Vexrath commanded, her scales dull with something she'd never felt before. Shame. The first to speak was Empress Zarathix of the Dravian Empire, the galaxy's most feared conqueror. Her massive form seemed diminished somehow as she approached the witness stand. 3 years ago, Zarathix began, her voice uncharacteristically soft. "I destroyed a human colony vessel. Standard military procedure. They were in Dravian territory. I took one survivor, a child, 10 years old. His name was Farah." The council chamber, even in its emptiness, seemed to hold its breath. Protocol demanded I send him to a labor camp. Instead, I kept him. A curiosity. A pet. Her claws scraped against the podium. I thought I was being merciful. I didn't understand what mercy was. Zarathix pulled up a hologram surveillance footage from her flagship. It showed a small human boy sitting on a nursery floor. 3 albino Dravian hatchlings curled around him, chirping contentedly. My offspring, rare, precious, born once in a millennium. They rejected me. Their own mother. They hissed when I approached. But this human child, this small, fragile being whose family I'd murdered, he showed them something I never could. "What was that?" Vexrath asked quietly. "Love without condition. Comfort without strategy." He sang to them, made them toys from scrap metal, scolded them when they bit too hard. He treated them not as future weapons or heirs to an empire, but as children who needed to feel safe. The hologram shifted, showing Zarathix herself sitting on the nursery floor beside Farah. Her massive claw extended tentatively as a hatchling named Pearl crept forward to touch it. A human child taught the Empress of the Dravian how to be a mother. He taught me that power and love are not the same, that strength can be gentle, that the greatest empires are built not through fear, but through sitting on the floor and telling bedtime stories. Zarathix's voice cracked. When the Council voted to reject humanity's plea for aid during their radiation crisis, I abstained. I told myself it wasn't my concern. But Farah heard about it. He looked at me with those eyes, those impossibly compassionate eyes, and asked, "If your people were dying, wouldn't you want someone to help?" I had no answer. I had conquered 12 systems, but couldn't answer a child's simple question about basic decency. The next testimony came from Ambassador Threllick, his membranes flickering with distress. "My daughter was dying of crimson plague. Human doctors came. Not because we paid them, but because a human child in their hospital had become friends with my daughter through video calls. A 6-year-old human girl named Maya told her father, 'Papa, my friend is sick. We have to help.'" Threllick's voice broke. "That child's insistence saved my daughter's life. And when humanity needed our help years later, I voted no. I told myself it was economics. But it wasn't. It was cowardice. I couldn't face the shame of being less compassionate than a 6-year-old. Commander Zix of the Etherean Defense Fleet spoke next. During the Battle of Kepler's Gate, a human child, a civilian refugee named Tommy, aged 8, was aboard one of their evacuation ships. When he saw we were retreating, leaving the human fleet to face the void swarm alone, he asked his captain, "Why aren't the big ships helping us?" Zix's mandibles trembled. The human captain said, "Sometimes people forget to help each other." And this child, this small human who should have been terrified, said, "Then we should stay and help them remember." The captain tried to explain military tactics, but the child insisted, "My teacher says you help people even when it's hard, especially when it's hard." The evacuation fleet stayed, Zix continued. Not because of strategy, but because their children shamed them into remembering their own values. 12 of 87 human ships survived. 4 billion of our civilians lived. And when humans needed our help 3 years later, we abandoned them because no child was watching us anymore. Vexrath listened to testimony after testimony, each revealing the same pattern. A human child in a refugee camp sharing their food with alien children. A human teenager teaching Kelrathi younglings to read. A human toddler crying at the news footage of disaster on a distant world, asking their parents, "Can we send our toys to the sad children?" Professor Elnara, the xenobiologist, presented her research. "I studied human child development for decades. I called their emphasis on teaching empathy to younglings evolutionary inefficiency. I wrote papers arguing that their children's emotional development delayed their cognitive growth." She displayed brain scans, behavioral studies, cultural analyses. I was wrong. Everything I understood about civilization was wrong. Human children aren't taught to be kind despite the universe's cruelty. They're taught to be kind because of it. They're raised to believe that compassion isn't weakness, it's the foundation of strength. Elnara's optical organs dimmed. We species of the Council raised our children to compete, to calculate advantage, to prioritize survival above connection. Humans raised theirs to ask, "How can I help?" before asking, "What do I gain?" Vexrath finally spoke, her voice heavy. "The humans didn't leave because we were strong. They left because their children were watching. Every vote we took, every plea we denied, every act of calculated cruelty, human children were learning that this is what civilized galaxies do." She pulled up the final transmission from Earth, not from their ambassador, but from a human child. A 12-year-old girl named Amara, speaking at her school's Model Galactic Council. "My teacher says we should still try to be friends with the aliens," the child said, her voice uncertain. "But I don't understand why they don't help each other. My mom says it's complicated, but it's not complicated. When someone needs help, you help them. That's what makes you a good person." The recording showed Amara pausing, then adding with a child's brutal honesty, "Maybe the problem is they don't want to be good people. Maybe they just want to be powerful people. And that's sad." The transmission ended. Vexrath addressed the empty chamber. "We lost humanity not because of politics or economics or military strategy. We lost them because their children held up a mirror and we couldn't stand the reflection. They showed us that civilization isn't measured by the size of our fleets or the sophistication of our technology. It's measured by how we answer a child's simple question, why aren't we helping? She looked at the vacant human seats. This council is dissolved. If we ever want humanity to return, if we ever want to be worthy of their children's questions, we must rebuild everything. We must become the galaxy that a human child could look at without disappointment. We must learn what a 10-year-old boy tried to teach the most feared empress. In the galaxy, that being powerful means nothing if you've forgotten how to be kind. In the empty chamber, on humanity's vacant seats, someone had left children's drawings. Human younglings' crayon pictures of aliens and humans holding hands beneath stars. At the bottom of each drawing, in a child's careful handwriting, "I hope we can be friends someday." High Chancellor Vexrath gathered the drawings with trembling claws, finally understanding the humans hadn't left to punish the Council. They'd left to protect their children from learning that cruelty was normal, and perhaps that was the greatest indictment of all, that the galaxy had become a place where humans no longer wanted their children to see what they'd become.